Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So I'm thumbing through her book, and there's so many great chapters in here about life in general, how to navigate it, how to figure out emotions, and all of this is one chapter in the book, Love Yourself, Love Your Life. That's the name of the book. And it's called Speak Your Truth. It's chapter 6, how to navigate through all different situations to make sure your communication is on point, how to overcome anger and communicate past that. And we're going to talk with her about it today and how to get through all of that. Dr. Ann Creekmore, amazing psychologist, is back with us. Welcome. How are you doing?
Good, Steve. How are you?
I'm awesome. Love the book. Really do.
Good.
It is.
Thank you.
It's like, this is the workbook for life. So many practical situations in here and how to deal with them and why we do mentally, why we do what we do. And Speak Your Truth is a great quote here too about Hamlet, or from Hamlet. And basically it says, this above all, to shine where there is self be truth, and it must follow as the night the day, thou cannot then be false in any way. Meaning, you got something to say, you got to be real about it. You can't hem and haw. Sometimes that's not easy. And we're going to help you out with that. Anger is the first thing that comes up here in this book, using anger as a guide to clarify yourself. What do you mean by that?
Well, anger is kind of a superficial emotion that we're easily able to get in touch with. And it's more like a clue to tell you that something is going on beneath emotionally for your emotional survival. Like hunger kind of tells you, well, I need to eat to nourish myself physically. Anger is like a sign, oh, well, there's something going wrong emotionally for your emotional survival. You need to figure out what it is. And so what you do is you go, well, I'm feeling angry or frustrated, annoyed, whatever. And I said, what's below that? What am I feeling sad about something? Some loss, disappointment, grief? Am I feeling anxious, overwhelmed, kind of apprehensive about something? What's going on? And we use that anger as the tip to tell us that go deeper to figure out what's really bothering us.
I'm going to throw a question out there. I really want your feedback on this, because I had this conversation with somebody just randomly yesterday. Like you said, I said in this conversation, anger is usually another emotion coming through. Sadness can show up as anger. Frustration can be anger. Question: can anger just be anger?
Well, of course, anger is anger. We have feelings, and we have right to have all our feelings. So when you feel angry, I just think in terms of, like, say, in a grief experience, you lose someone, and at some point, part of the phases of grief, as we know, some shock and bargaining and anger is a third phase, and and then sad. They're all feelings, yes. But we can't really, the problem with anger is that we've got to take it a little deeper. Like if we're grieving, we just get mad, say, at the doctor for something they didn't do for our loved one, we get stuck there. We're never actually getting our feelings of sadness, the most important stuff, the grief out, and get into some place of acceptance, some sort of peace on it, where the good memories come through and you start to feel some peace and can move on. So anger is a feeling, of course, and we want to be aware of it, but we really want to usually go below it, not let it get the best of us, not let it control us or act out too quickly or do things that would get us in trouble with our anger. Because also remember, anger reduces your IQ, as one of my clients put it, where you're not thinking with the full deck when you're all agitated and angry. So you want to get it down and say what's below. There's deeper feelings that you can address better to heal and solve problems with.
But can it really be just anger? Like, for example, it presents itself like your example in the doctor's office. The doctor forgot to do something or whatever, didn't catch something, and you're angry. Oh, you're a doctor. How'd you miss that? I'm being very hypothetical here.
Yes, sure.
How'd you miss that? You're angry. Came to you. You're a doctor. I assume that you're going to take care of this situation, whatever it might be. Is it purely anger that's being displayed, or is it something else? For example, doctor forgot to do something. Is it fear? Oh my gosh, this could have happened. The doctor missed something. That could have impacted my health or the health of a loved one. I'm angry. But it really
Mhm.
started with fear. Can anger just be anger?
Mm, that's a good question. And what do you think, Steve, about that?
I don't think it can.
I agree with you. I was going to say, but I wanted to know what you thought. Yes, I agree with you. It's not. It's more of that gives you some energy to do something. It gives you the idea like hunger. There's nothing you can do about hunger unless you realize, oh, it means I need to eat. I need to nourish myself. Anger tells you, oh, I need to do something emotionally to help myself.
Right.
So it's just a clue more than anything. So I agree with you
Yeah.
completely.
And okay, that being said, and we'll get back into speaking your truth in a moment, but is sadness just sadness? I'm picking any emotion here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sadness is sadness. Um, what do you think? And what is your opinion on that? Mhm.
I believe those emotions are those emotions. Sadness is sadness. You're sad.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
it's not like
Mhm.
there's anything else showing up there. Um,
Right.
frustration is frustration. Frustration can lead to anger. Yeah, I believe a lot of these, if maybe all of them, haven't thought about that myself, but a lot of them can lead to anger.
Yes. They can just, that's the initial response. We know
Right.
something's wrong.
Right. So
Right.
moving on in the book, there's in this chapter, chapter 6, healthy, assertive communication. Now, without even reading what you have here, just that headline speaks to me in that we need to speak our truth. We have something to say. We can't color it. We can't hem and haw. And it's healthy to be direct, but there's
Yeah.
ways to do that. Why don't we
Correct.
when we talk about the ways to do that?
Sure. So there are the four styles of communication with three not being healthy. Like one you mentioned, really passive, where you don't really come out and say anything. You're quiet and don't let the other person know what your feelings and needs are. You're acting like they have all the rights to their feelings and needs. And then it can be passive. You can be aggressive. You don't want to come out and tell someone off, act like you have all the rights, like, well, you're doing this wrong, you need to do this. And like act like you have all the rights. They don't have any rights. You can just tell them what to do. And passive aggressive, in a way, is a hem and haw in a sense where you're angry and you don't, or you're upset about something and you do something to let them know that's subtle, that's not real. You roll your eyes, you don't speak to them, or you respond to something they want, and they don't know what's going on. So that's not getting any good communication. The healthy is to come out and tell a person what you're feeling and needing. And there's something called the I message, like a capital I versus a U message,
Mm,
where you
mm.
talk from a place of I. You're not talking about the other person, what they're doing wrong. You're going from yourself. You're sharing. Well, when this kind of thing happens, you can kind of describe the incident that's bothering you. And if anyone did it, you'd feel that way. When this sort of thing goes on, then I feel, and then you put some feelings, share some feelings. I feel disappointed, or I feel sad, or I feel apprehensive, worried, whatever the feeling is. And you say, why? Because because I'm afraid this certain bad thing will happen, or because I feel like I'm not very adequate, in your eyes, or whatever the because is. So you're very much just come from a place of sharing about you, so that they get to know what you're feeling and you're needing. You're sharing your feelings and needs. You're not telling them off and telling them what they're doing wrong, which they're just going to start telling you probably what you're doing wrong, and it'll be a little argument. Won't get anywhere.
Is it better to focus on the you communication? I personally think it is, or the we, to not make it about yourself, even though it may be in that direction, but you want to bring others into it. So we're in this together kind of feeling. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a good point. Can you give me an example of what you're thinking? Mhm.
Well, let's say you're in a relationship, marriage, partnership, whatever it may be. Um, and let's say finances are tough. Instead of throwing it out to that person, and you need to stop spending the way you're spending, okay? Because we
That's a
have a
you message.
challenge.
Yeah.
Right. So reframe it and say, we have some financial challenges. Uh, Work has not been the same as it always has been. I'm sure it's going to turn around, but we really need to curb our spending a little bit. We need to get together on that and just look at everything here and just really tap the brakes on the spending.
Right. And so if that was, I think that's fine. If like say you're having a communication where one person, like you just did, was a sender and say, I'm the listener. And so then I would acknowledge what you say. So I would say, I hear you saying that you're really concerned about the finances and you feel we need to look at that. And then you can say, it's not my intention that you feel that I'm not interested in doing that, or that that I don't care about that, and I'm sorry. Because so that is a healthy communication because you became a sender,
Mm,
and right, that was okay when I said that back, right? Like it wasn't like I was hearing you, acknowledging your feelings, and saying I'm sorry that you're going through that.
hmm
So that would be a healthy response. Then you could go on and say more about it, until you feel complete. You say, well, I think the big thing was spent, whatever. Would you like to say something else about it? And then I can give you and we could take it into a little bit of a finished scenario of win-win negotiation. Just example kind of
hmm
thing.
hmm it,
That you brought it up.
it's funny, but it is in a way, it is a negotiation. Like you're,
That's what we're working towards. Exactly. Because you said that, and then I would acknowledge you. Then you're still center. You could say more about what it is. I can acknowledge you some more. Then we could flip. And then I could say what I'm thinking about finances. I could say,
mm-mm,
I've been a little bit worried about finances, but I'm thinking this, so, or that, whatever my I messages are, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking.
hmm
And then be your response to say, well, I hear you saying, and this, and you could pick up on whatever the distress is, and you say kind of back, well, I hear you're distressed about this, and it's not my intention to contribute that. I'm sorry, because that's a kind of a three-part response that really shows you're listening, active listening to the person.
Yep. Yep.
And then once you get both sides out and you both shared, then you go to the win-win negotiation, the hour. Like, well, how can we work this out? What would be win-win?
Is it reasonable also when you're in that situation? Let's say I gave that statement and I flipped it to the we, so it's not accuse. I'm not accusing somebody. I'm just saying
Right.
we need to cut back in my mind.
Yeah.
And what the hell did you do? You bought 18 pairs of
That's
shoes,
you. That's, yes.
18 pairs of shoes at $78, a box. We can't afford that, but I'm
I don't have 18 pairs of shoes. Right? You said that.
I'm tempering it and saying we really need to cut back. Uh, what are your thoughts on us cutting back on our budget? Given everything here, what do you think, Ann? So now I'm asking the question. I'm thinking that it's always important to ask questions as opposed to just dictate things. Even in any situation, sales situation, they say, and I don't do sales, but one of the number one things you can do is just ask questions. Just ask
That's true.
questions.
That's true. A question is always important, because you could just ask, what do you think about this? Do you feel the same? Yeah, are you concerned about the finances, or do you have any,
Right.
you know, and so a question is always a good thing to ask. But I think also the piece that I was kind of alluding to a minute ago was like, you could add more of what the concerns were, like the 18 pairs of shoes. That would be the next one. So I hear you saying you don't like me buying 18 pairs of shoes. And, it's not my intention to distress you and pull it out of budget, off budget. Sorry.
Mm,
Okay. So then instead of just jumping into the win-win or how do we resolve right away, you complete everything you need to say in little chunks, just like you've been doing it. Then say the other person, like, well, now it's your turn. What do you want to say about finances? So then it be the other person goes, well, this is what I'm thinking about finances, how I'm feeling, or what we need to do. And you'd be the listener, and you say, oh, I'm hearing you say this. And if we felt that they were upset, and so I'm sorry you're upset about that, And so then after everybody's complete sharing, then you could say, all right, now let's figure out how to resolve this. What's our win-win together on this? But each person should kind of soul search for a moment, contemplate for a moment, and think about what's really important to them. And then something they can let go too. I mean, maybe a person can say, well, I can let, I feel that I could let go buying shoes for now. that
Right.
could be, you can let go anything you want to, but you're in a relationship. You can't have your way all the time, on everything. It's a mutual thing. So you have to pick something, the bottom line is, what you really need right on this topic. And then maybe something you can let go, So
What
does that
about
make sense?
totally?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
what I'm gathering here is it's an exchange. It can't
Mhm.
be a
Absolutely.
one party laying down the law.
That
But
exactly.
it is a lot of times because of
Yeah.
the dynamics of relationships
Yes.
and egos and all of that. What about the boundaries? Creating boundaries for effective, healthy, assertive communication.
Yes, that's very important. Like no verbal aggression, name calling, put downs, that's not part of healthy relating. You want to be authentic about sharing from you, and it's not narcissistic to share, if you're worried about the finances or something, or what you're feeling, if you're emotionally, upset about it. That's just sharing your feelings, and it's okay. But you don't want to tell the other person you're, destroying our lives, or, that say ugly things to them. There has to be boundaries when you're talking. And, and then part of the talking would lead to some more boundaries, with both of you getting what you want around finances, hopefully. And that would involve probably, some boundaries on yourself, as well.
If you're in that situation where the other party has a habit of, like I just demonstrated, barking, like the
Yes.
boundary for the other person could be, I'm not accepting that. That's not the way you will speak to me.
Right.
It's not
Right.
easy, especially as time goes on in a relationship where you've allowed it. And now you gotta pick it up and stand up for yourself and say, no, well, that's not the way you speak with me. I
Right.
understand what you're trying to say and your point, and we'll discuss this, but that's the key word. We're going to discuss this. You're not going
Right.
to yell, bark, and dictate to me. Uh,
Right.
is
Tactful, polite communication, right? Where you
right.
share about your feelings and needs, letting the other person respond, take it in, and then you give them a time to share their needs and feelings, but nobody's putting the other person down while they're talking.
Hmm.
Mhm.
What are some of the other things that we should be mindful of when it comes to this type of communication?
Well, that is a process. That it's try to, take a time and say, hey, would this be a good time to talk? We have a little time we can talk about something, not when somebody's in the middle of something or they're just not in a good mood to it. Try to find a time when people are willing to listen to each other and have time to do it. And so ask that first, and then do the tactful, polite, healthy communication. Say, who wants to be center first? Well, and if you suggested it, you probably do, because that's, you're bringing it up. So say, can I give you what I'm feeling, and then hear what you're feeling afterwards. So you don't interrupt really when you listen to the other person. You don't say, like you say, well, I'm really concerned because you spent so much money on clothes. You could say that, but it's not my place in response to that to say, well, I hear you saying that you feel like I'm breaking our budget by spending too much on clothes, but what about that car you just got? It's not my place at that point in the communication to say that to you, because I'm not the sender then. You just got to give the respect, let the other person finish their talk. Then when you're sending, you could say, well, I've got a little concern that we got a new car, and that what's that going to do for our budget? We seem to have a better closed budget before then. And then when I was a sender, you'd be the acknowledged. Yeah, I hear you saying you're a little worried about your closed budget now because of our new car payment. And that would be an acknowledgement. I understand. So the point I'm making is that when one person's a sender, you keep that boundary where the other person is acknowledging the sender and not bringing in their own viewpoint yet. You take turns on sharing your viewpoints. That's another thing that helps.
How about when you've been triggered, the other person is barking, yelling, screaming at you, and now you're firing back, and you need to, calm down, to chill down. What are some techniques we can use for that?
That's an excellent question. I mean, and I do have it in the book. Like you said, there's like about 8, kind of choices. I try to get couples that I'm working with or family members to just pick a couple out of it, and that they want to just kind of use in general and start working on. But a lot of people pick things like a timeout. They might say, oh, well, let's just peace, timeout, truce. If we get into any verbal aggression or, heated stuff, let's just take a breather, go breathe, get our IQ back, right? Get ourselves calmed down and then come back later. That's one thing. And then do something, to get your mind off of it. And another thing is another strategy is called a love letter that John Gray, the one who did Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, you can use it with anybody. It's not a romantic love letter, but you basically can go off before. Usually it's better to do it before, but you can do that later and say, well, let's just write each other a letter. There's 2 parts to the love letter. The first is you write what you're feeling about, this topic. Like, I feel sad because, I feel angry because, I feel scared because, I feel embarrassed because. You fill in the blanks, just this little fill in the blanks thing you do, and then say, I love you because. Then you actually write back to yourself a second part, an apology letter from them that you'd like to hear, where that if they're in their highest self and they really heard everything you said, got it, and they're in their best and highest self, what they might say, say like, well, I'm sorry because I regret this, and I understand, and you deserve, and I love you because. And so once you go away and you kind of calm yourself down, you write that letter, you've clarified your thoughts for one and your feelings, and then you kind of healed yourself a little bit because you kind of know, well, they actually do care about me. Probably if you really got what was bothering me, he probably would say that, and you've done it. So it's kind of healing. And then you can actually just pass, if you want to, you could pass the 2 letters, to your person, and then they could get the idea more focused on the feelings and what's needed versus, arguing kind of over a topic.
What final question, just about out of time, but I'm curious. We're talking about speak your truth and communication. Let's say you have a conflict and the other person's not always very communicative in the relationship.
Okay.
And they say, I don't want to talk about this right now. I'm not dealing with this. I'm not going to talk about this right now. How do you handle that?
Well, then, that's so in general, they're a little avoidant. You're saying, yeah.
100%.
And so, that could become a topic, really, say like, sometime can we, is there a good time we could talk about something? And see if there's sometimes you feel in the mood, or just notice when times might be good, and then bring it up then, and then just say, you could make that a topic. That's a concern. When I try to talk about different things, and usually I'm met with, no, I'm not interested in talking about that. I'm not doing that. And then that I start to feel, rejected, or whatever the feeling might be. So you can make that the topic and then work that through before you get to your other topics that are, things you want to talk about. So you get a win-win on maybe when is good to talk, or how do we talk, or do we go to counseling to talk? Who knows? That's the end result to figure it out.
Is it reasonable to set an appointment? Okay, I get it. You don't want to talk right now. Let's do this. How about tomorrow at this time? Or how about tomorrow, maybe when the kids go to sleep, 8:00? What about, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. You just kind of say when would be good. You don't want to talk about it now, and when is good. When could we just have some time to share and talk, and then decide on a time?
I'm more a proponent for pinning it down, because I think the other person could say it's never going to be a good time to talk, or what, they're gonna
Right.
they're gonna push it off. So you have to give them something, or maybe a choice. You want to talk about it after breakfast tomorrow, or I know we're busy, later in the day.
That's a great solution. Feel free to let me know if you want to do now or you want to do tomorrow morning. And see what they choose.
Yeah, and it gives them the choice, puts the ball in their court, so it gives them a little bit of power.
Exactly.
And always great talking with you. AP Filosa is your pen name for Love Yourself, Love Your Life, and other books. You have another book there as well. If somebody wants to connect with you, let's say they're going through some communication issues in their relationship, how do they find you?
Yes, my website is psychologistinvirginia.com, all spelled out. Psychologist with a plural S in Virginia spelled out.com. That's got my phone number, my email, all the information about the type of therapy I do. So that would be the best way to reach me.
Always great talking with you. Love the insight. Love the book. I mean, it is just so well written and not clinical. Like, it's easy for us to understand. It's essentially a workbook, like it's the go-to, it's my Bible, it's like, oh, great. Gotta go grab the book.
Try to summarize all the main forms of therapy and the helping things to help people. So Thank you so much.
Appreciate you and look forward next time we get together.
Thank you. Me too.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.